If you looked over the state standards for your discipline, probably what you saw that there are a lot of them. If you look through them all, there are tons, and even Marzano, one of the publishers of one of the books we use, The Art and Science of Teaching, says that there are too many standards, like standards, the cumulative standards from kindergarten through 12th grade. If we taught them all, then it would take 21 years to teach them all effectively. So even experts agree that there are too many standards to teach well. So what you have to do as a classroom teacher then is prioritize the standards that you're faced with. In other words, determine which ones are the most important and which ones you're going to decide to spend the most time on. So I've always used this prioritization process or prioritization scale to go through really the objectives that are outlined in your curriculum, and I rate them as high, medium, or low. High objectives are objectives that are essential and enduring, which means the students will need them to be successful in your course that they're in right now and future math or science courses. So the things like in Algebra 1 you teach factoring, well, that's essential and enduring because they're going to need it for success in just about every other math course they take for the rest of their math lives, on through high school and then through college if they go on into a STEM-based field. So that's an example of something that I would rate high because they're going to need it. They need to master it. They need to remember it. They need to be able to use it at any point in time. So that's a very high level. Enduring would be another part of essential, and enduring would also be something that they just need for life. Like an example of that's in pre-algebra, percentages. Students need to be able to understand percentages to be wise consumers so that they can understand sales tax or interest rates on loan. They need to understand things like credit and annuities too, which would come in a financial math class. These would be examples of essential and enduring, not because they require success in the next class necessarily, but because they're required to be wise consumers to make good decisions with money in the future. The next level would be medium, and these are good to know things that kids need to be exposed to. And it might be something like logarithms, that if kids are going to go on to STEM-based careers, then they probably do need to master logarithms. Or another good example would be exponential functions. If they're going to move on in math, then they need to know exponential functions pretty well, maybe even to a level of mastery. But the majority of your kids won't need to know that because it won't be required for them later. So I rate it as a medium because for most kids it's just a good to know exposure. And the kids who need to master it probably will in the time that you spend on it. But when you've ranked something a medium, you're not going to spend as much time as you would on something that's high, because when you've ranked it high, you're going to try to assure that all of your kids have mastered it, every kid in the class. In a medium, you know that not every kid needs to master it. In fact, you're kind of looking for those kids that can master it because they may have, what it takes to become, to move into a STEM field, an engineer, a mathematician, or something like that. Not that the kids who don't get it won't have that, but a medium skill would be something that they could recover from if they don't know it. So you spend less time. You're going to relegate more time to the high skills. Medium, you're just going to get through it. You'll say, I've got 3 days to work on this skill. I'm going to use 3 days. The high, you might, you're going to make sure you have extra days to work on it, more than you might need in your planning. And then the third level are low level skills. These are skills that are chapters or lessons that, as I would look at them as a math teacher, I know that they're not going to be necessary for later success, or it could be that there's something that's going to be covered later. Maybe a lot of times in the last parts of a textbook, they'll throw in content that's actually going to be covered in the next class. I would consider that a low priority. If I get to it, fine. If I don't get to it, it's not going to really hurt kids at any level. So I can rank it low. Then if I'm running out of time and I need more time to work on a high skill, then I could just knock one of the low skills out to buy more time. And just something you might even just say, I just don't even know why it's there. It's just not important to anything. From time to time, you'll find those. It's not often that you'll find a low priority skill. You'll find a lot of mediums and highs, probably about 50-50. among those two. But anyway, that's the prioritization scale that I use. You have to use more than just your opinion to make these decisions. So here's a list of documents that can be helpful. State standards is obviously where you start. Your district or your school grade level team, like the math department in the school you work in, might have their own set of standards that are even further pared down than the district standards. But district standards are usually a subset of state standards. They probably have already been somewhat prioritized. And then your grade level team may have its own or department standards. I guess I should put there. Maybe the math department has discussed the district standards and pared them down a little more, so it's a subset of the district standards. You have those. Another good, so obviously you're going to use those. That's where you're going to start. One thing I use to make decisions about what's important are college gatekeeper course objectives. Like when I prioritize my course objectives, the first thing I look at is a college algebra, college level course. Because I know if I prepare kids for a college algebra level course, then they're going to be prepared to do anything they want to in life or career. So that's just a good aim and target. I also look at courses from the community college system, like they have a course called Math for the Trades. And this would be for students who are going to career and tech ed type programs like machining, robotics, even carpentry and welding will require courses called Math of the Trades, and they're a lower level of geometry, so they're not quite as intense. I'll look at those too to help make decisions about threes, because I want to make sure my kids can at least get to a course like that if they decide to go into higher education. Then obviously you're going to use your colleagues, members of your team, people you know from other schools, other professionals. If you have a college professor you like or get along with, keep them on your contact list, because they're a great person to reach out to if you're making a decision about what to teach, how important it is. You might just shoot them an email and say, hey, why should I teach this? What's the reason that I need to teach this specific topic? Or is it something that's not really that important in your opinion? Great resource. Your textbooks are obviously a good resource. The content that's in there wouldn't be there if it hadn't been carefully vetted. So definitely take a look at your textbooks and see what they've included. And then there are resources like Achieve the Core is one example. It's a website that has tons of information specifically about math content standards. And I'm sure there are others. You can Google resources, but that's just a list to start from, a list of resources to help you make prioritization decisions.